I want to tell you my story. It begins not with pain, but with dreams. When I was younger, I believed in love the way children believe in fairy tales. The kind of love that saves you, that makes you whole, that holds you when the world feels too heavy. And then Ryan came into my life. It was a rainy evening in our small town. The streets were shiny with water, the air cold, the sky heavy. I was sitting in a little cafe, reading a book, when the door opened and he walked in. Ryan. He had that kind of smile that made you feel like you'd known him forever. Dark hair, eyes like they held secrets, but kind ones. He ordered coffee, looked around, and then his eyes met mine. Just one look, and something inside me shifted. He walked over to my table and asked if he could sit. I nodded, heart racing. We talked about books, music, dreams. He told me he wanted to travel the world, start a business, build a home filled with laughter. I told him I wanted simple things: a small house, a family, a life where love was louder than anything else. He looked at me and said, "Maybe we want the same thing." Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Ryan and I met almost every day. Walks in the park, late-night talks on the phone, sharing silly secrets, laughing until our stomachs hurt. He was everything I thought love should be. Gentle, warm, exciting. When he held my hand, the world felt safe. When he looked at me, I felt like I mattered. I didn't know then how much that feeling would mean, because one day, it would all disappear. On my birthday, Ryan took me to the same cafe where we first met. The lights were soft, music playing quietly, rain tapping against the windows like it had that first day. He held my hands across the table and said, "Hannah, I can't imagine my life without you. Will you marry me?" Tears filled my eyes before I could even speak. Of course, I said yes. In that moment, I thought all my dreams were coming true. Our wedding was small, beautiful, filled with flowers and laughter. My white dress, his nervous smile, the promises we made in front of everyone: to love, to protect, to stay together, no matter what. I believed every word. I thought he did too. After the wedding, we moved into a small apartment. It wasn't perfect. Leaky roof, old furniture, but it was ours. We cooked together, watched movies on a tiny TV, made plans for the future. Sometimes late at night, Ryan would hold me close and whisper, "We'll have a big house one day. Maybe kids. Maybe a dog. I'll make you so happy, Hannah." And I believed him. I believed every single promise. If someone had told me then that all of this would change, that the man who made me laugh would one day make me cry, I wouldn't have believed them. But life has a way of turning dreams into something else, something darker. And that is where my story truly begins. The first few months after our wedding felt like a dream. I used to wake up early, make coffee, watch the sunlight creep into our small apartment while Ryan was still asleep. I remember smiling to myself, thinking, this is happiness. This is what love feels like. We had little fights sometimes about bills, about groceries, about silly things couples fight over, but they never lasted long. He would hold me afterward, kiss my forehead, and say, I'm sorry, Hannah. I just had a long day. I believed him. I always believed him. But slowly, things began to change. At first, it was small. He stopped asking about my day. He stopped telling me about his. He came home late, smelling of cigarettes, though he never smoked before. When I asked, he said it was just stress from work. I believed him again because that's what love does. It trusts, even when maybe it shouldn't. One evening, I cooked his favorite meal, pasta with garlic bread. I set the table with candles, thinking it would cheer him up. He came home, looked at the table, at me, and said nothing. Just sat down, ate silently, and then left for the bedroom without a word. I stood there, holding the empty plates, feeling like the air had been knocked out of me. Something was slipping away, but I couldn't name it yet. Weeks turned into months. The man who used to laugh with me, dream with me, now barely looked at me. I told myself it was work, that he was tired, that every marriage had ups and downs. But deep inside, a small voice kept whispering, something is wrong. The first time he raised his voice at me, it felt like the walls shook. We were arguing about money, something about bills I hadn't paid on time. His words were sharp, louder than they needed to be. I stood there, frozen, not because of what he said, but because it was him saying it. The man who once held me like I was the most precious thing in his life now looked at me like I was a burden. Afterward, he apologized, brought me flowers, told me he was stressed, that he didn't mean it. And I forgave him because isn't that what love is? Forgiving? Believing the good moments will come back? But they didn't. The distance between us grew like a wall, brick by brick. He stopped coming home on time. Sometimes he didn't come home at all. He started drinking, something he had never done before. And with every drink, his temper got worse. One night, he came home late. I asked where he had been. He looked at me with cold eyes I barely recognized and said, "Stop asking so many questions, Hannah. You're becoming annoying." My heart sank. I wanted to scream, to ask him what happened to the man I married, but the words got stuck in my throat. I spent nights waiting for him, staring at the clock, wondering if this was the same life I had dreamed about. The love that once felt like sunlight now felt like a storm waiting to break. And deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. I never thought a home could feel so cold while the lights were on, but ours did. The laughter had left long ago, and now the silence was louder than any words we ever spoke. Ryan barely looked at me anymore. Some nights he didn't come home at all. When he did, he reeked of alcohol and strange perfume I didn't recognize. I wanted to ask him. I wanted to scream, "Who is she, Ryan? Where have you been?" But I couldn't. Because somewhere deep inside, I already knew the answers. One evening he came home and I could tell by the way he slammed the door that he was angry. I had overcooked the rice. Just rice. And that was enough. He threw the plate on the floor, the food scattering everywhere, and shouted words I can't forget. Useless, stupid. Can't you do anything right? I stood there shaking, staring at the mess on the floor, wondering how love could turn into this so fast. The next morning, he acted like nothing happened. He even smiled at me, kissed my cheek before leaving for work. That was the worst part. How he could break me one night and pretend we were fine the next day. It made me question my own mind, my own worth. Maybe it was my fault. Maybe I was too sensitive. Maybe this was normal and I was just weak. But it wasn't normal. One night, he came home drunk, angrier than ever. I had asked him to call me if he was running late. That was it. Just a simple request. He grabbed my wrist so hard it left a bruise for days. His eyes were red, his voice like ice. "Stop telling me what to do, Hannah. You're nothing without me." Those words, they cut deeper than anything else. Nothing without him? Was that what he thought of me? Of us? I spent the night crying in the bathroom, holding my wrist, feeling the pain spread from my skin to my heart. I wanted to call someone, anyone, but I had no one left. My friends had stopped visiting because Ryan didn't like them. My family lived far away, and I told them everything was fine because I didn't want them to worry. I started talking to myself just to hear a voice in the house. I would sit by the window watching the city lights, wondering if someone out there was as lonely as me. Days turned into weeks. The bruises on my wrist faded, but the ones on my heart grew darker. He didn't just hurt me with his hands. He hurt me with his silence, his absence, his words that cut like knives. And the worst part? I still loved him. Or maybe I loved the memory of the man he used to be, the man who held me close and promised to protect me. I kept waiting for him to come back. Not home, but back to me, to us. But deep inside, a small, broken voice kept whispering, "He's never coming back, Hannah. Not the man you loved." It was raining that night. I remember because I stood by the window for hours, watching the raindrops race down the glass like they were in a hurry to reach the ground. Maybe they wanted to escape the clouds the way I wanted to escape this house. Ryan hadn't come home yet. It was almost midnight. My hands shook as I held my phone, staring at his number. I wanted to call, but my heart told me not to. Every time I called, he came home angry. Every time I stayed silent, he came home angry too. There was no winning anymore. The door slammed open. He walked in, his shirt soaked, his eyes burning. I could smell the alcohol even from across the room. I said nothing. I just stood there, hoping silence would keep the storm away. But storms don't care about silence. "Where's my food?" he shouted. "It's on the table," I whispered. He walked over, looked at the plate, and in one swift motion, threw it against the wall. The crash made me flinch. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might break out of my chest. "I told you I hate this," he screamed. I wanted to ask, "What do you like then, Ryan? What do you want from me?" But my voice refused to come out. He stepped closer, his face inches from mine. His eyes were wild, like he wasn't even Ryan anymore, just a stranger wearing his face. Then it happened. He pushed me. Hard. I fell to the floor, my head hitting the corner of the table. For a moment the world spun. I tasted blood. My vision blurred, but I saw him standing there, breathing heavily, his hands shaking. Not with regret, but with anger that hadn't burned out yet. I crawled to the corner, holding my head, waiting for him to say something. Anything. But he didn't. He just left. The door slammed again, and then there was only rain, falling harder now, like the sky was crying for me because I couldn't. I don't remember how long I stayed on that floor. Minutes, maybe hours. My hands were wet with tears and blood, but the pain in my heart was louder than the pain in my head. That night, something inside me broke. Not just my trust, not just my love, something deeper, like a part of my soul finally gave up. I realized this wasn't love anymore. Maybe it never was. I looked at the window, at the darkness outside, and for the first time, I thought about leaving. Really leaving. No more waiting for the man who wasn't coming back. No more pretending everything was fine. But where would I go? I had no money, no friends left, no family nearby. The thought of leaving scared me almost as much as staying did. But I knew one thing for sure. If I stayed, this house would become my grave. The rain didn't stop that night. Neither did my tears. But somewhere inside, a small, fragile hope began to whisper, "Hannah, this can't be the end. You have to find a way out before it's too late." The morning after that night felt different. The rain had stopped, but the house was heavy with silence. I woke up on the floor with a blanket around me. I didn't remember covering myself. Maybe Ryan did it before leaving. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was habit. It didn't matter. Nothing mattered anymore. My head still hurt from where I hit the table, but the pain in my chest was worse. I sat there for a long time, staring at nothing, my hands wrapped around my knees. My mind kept playing last night over and over. The shouting, the blood, the cold look in his eyes. Something inside me whispered that if I stayed, this would happen again. Maybe worse. Maybe next time I wouldn't wake up at all. By afternoon, I made up my mind. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have money. But I had to leave. It was the only way to survive. I found an old backpack in the closet and started packing whatever I could. Some clothes, my ID, a few dollars I had hidden away, and the small photograph of my parents I kept in the drawer. My hand shook the whole time, but I kept going. When I zipped the bag, I felt my heart pound like it knew this was real. I looked around the house one last time. The house where I had dreamed of love and family. The house that became my prison. My eyes stopped at the wedding picture on the wall. We looked so happy that day. I wanted to tear it down, but I didn't. I just turned away. Ryan came home early that evening. My heart almost stopped when I heard his car. I had planned to leave while he was away, but now it was too late. He walked in, saw the bag by the door, and his eyes narrowed. "Where are you going?" His voice was low, dangerous. I swallowed hard. "I can't stay here anymore, Ryan. I can't do this." For a moment, I thought he might stop me, that he might yell or break something or worse. But he just stood there, silent. His face changed. Anger, then confusion, then something I couldn't read. "You're leaving me?" he finally said, almost like a child who didn't understand what was happening. I didn't answer. I just picked up the bag. My hands were trembling so much I thought I might drop it. "Hannah," he said softly, "you won't survive out there alone." Maybe he was right. Maybe I wouldn't. But I knew one thing. If I stayed, I wouldn't survive either. I opened the door. My heart felt like it was breaking and healing at the same time. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I stepped out into the cool evening air, the sky painted with the last colors of the setting sun. For the first time in years, I felt the wind on my face, and it didn't feel like sadness. It felt like freedom. I didn't know where I was going. A shelter, maybe. Or a friend's couch. Or just a bus to anywhere but here. I didn't have answers. But I had taken the first step. As I walked away from the house, the weight on my chest began to lift, little by little. The road ahead was uncertain, maybe even hard. But at least it was my road. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something new. A tiny spark in my heart. Hope.